We're joined by Peter Mathews, a professor of political science at Cypress College in Los Angeles. Peter, thanks so much for your time. Now, we're hearing there are 3 out of 4 experts saying President Trump should be impeached. Do you agree with their testimony?
I do by and large agree with the 3, not the 4th one. And don't forget, it wasn't just the 3 experts who are professors of law, but also it had to do with several present and former government officials like Dr. Fiona Hill, Lieutenant Colonel Windham, and George Kent. These are people who are in the government or are in the government, and they also concluded that the president did make an offer in order to get some personal advantage to himself, to be able to beat Joe Biden if he ran against him, to ask and strongly suggest and persuade the Ukrainian government, the president of Ukraine, to say that he would start an investigation on the Bidens. And then the president would consider releasing military aid, which was already voted for by Congress and authorized by them and required to be delivered. He held the aid for 5 weeks. This is definitely culpable evidence, in my view, and the view of the professionals.
Yeah, and how much of an influence does Wednesday's testimony from these 4 experts have on the decision that will eventually, if it gets to the Senate, have to be made by the Republican majority in that Senate on whether or not to finally impeach President Trump?
This is difficult to say once again because we don't know how many Republicans will see the light and see the truth and change over and decide that they should vote to remove him. All the Democrats will do that, I'm sure, but the Republicans are the majority party in the Senate, as you know. So will this kind of testimony sway their intellect to do it and to their intelligence to go ahead and go by it and vote the right way? It happened when there was a threat of that happening during Watergate when the investigations began. People like Senator Howard Baker, who was a Republican, who was skeptical of impeachment, came across and told President Nixon, you know, your gig is up because the tapes are here and the tapes are going to be ordered by the Supreme Court to be turned over. When Nixon saw that he was about to be impeached, he resigned. So I don't think Trump is going to resign, but we'll see what happens in the Senate.
And next year, of course, is an election year in the U.S. How does this impeachment inquiry now affect Trump's re-election bid?
I think it's going to sharpen lines among voters. But on the other hand, Trump voters are the minority. They only have about 35–36% of the vote. But they're positioned in key states, in the swing states that the Electoral College can make a difference in. Trump voters are stronger than what they are nationwide. So those voters will stick to Trump and be more defensive and more offensive about what happened here and upset at what happened, and they'll go out and vote. On the other hand, the vast majority of Americans do, in fact, support voting Mr. Trump out. The plurality. The larger number of Americans want Trump out in November, and they will harden their position also looking at all the evidence that seems to indicate that he has committed impeachable offenses, and they will probably turn out to vote in huge droves as well in numbers. Depends on the Electoral College, how the votes fall in those swing states of Michigan, for example, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, those states like that, which Trump won by very small margins last time.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see how all of this plays out. Peter Mathews, thanks so much for your time and your analysis.